I've learned that humiliation has a taste. It's metallic, like old pennies left in the rain, and it coats your tongue when someone you love tells you to shut up in your own house. My workshop smelled like engine oil and sawdust that evening. The light came in low through the window, cutting through the dust motes like God himself was trying to see what would happen next. I was bent over the engine block of a '98 Ford pickup, my hands black with grease, when I heard the BMW pull into my driveway. I knew that sound. My daughter Rebecca's husband drove a 7 Series, 48 months of payments on a car that cost more than I'd made in 2 years. Dad? Rebecca's voice came through the open workshop door. She didn't wait for an answer. She never did anymore. I straightened up, wiping my hands on a rag that had been white sometime during the Clinton administration. Rebecca stood in the doorway with her husband Kyle beside her. She wore what she always wore now, expensive athleisure that cost $300 to look like you just rolled out of bed. Kyle wore a polo shirt that probably cost more than my mortgage payment, and sunglasses that he didn't take off even though the sun was setting. "Hey, sweetheart," I said. "Didn't know you were coming by." We were in the neighborhood. She pulled out a cigarette. Not asking, just lighting it. My wife Linda had died of lung cancer 2 years ago. Rebecca knew that. Rebecca had held her mother's hand in that hospice room while Linda struggled to breathe through lungs that had turned to concrete. "Rebecca," I said, my voice calm, measured, "could you not smoke in here? You know it bothers my breathing." I'd developed asthma after 30 years working in garages. Not severe, but enough that cigarette smoke made my chest tight. Kyle's voice hit me like a slap. "Shut up." Just like that. Sharp. Loud. The way you'd yell at a dog that wouldn't stop barking. Rebecca didn't flinch. She took a drag of her cigarette and smiled. Not a warm smile, not embarrassed, just satisfied. I looked at my daughter's face and saw a stranger. "Kyle," she said, her voice light, almost playful. "Be nice." But she was still smiling. I said nothing. My heart hammered in my chest, but I kept my face blank. Neutral. I'd learned that in the Army 30 years ago. Never let them see you bleed. Instead, I reached into my pocket and pulled out my flip phone. Yeah, I still used a flip phone. Kyle had made fun of it at Thanksgiving, called it a dinosaur brick. Rebecca had laughed. I pressed the button twice. 2 rings. Then I hung up. Kyle was already talking, telling Rebecca about some CrossFit workout, not even looking at me. They left 5 minutes later. Rebecca stubbed out her cigarette on my workbench, leaving a black mark on the wood. I stood there in the growing darkness after their taillights disappeared down the street. My neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, appeared at her fence. She was 68 and had lived next door for 20 years. "That was your daughter?" she called over. "Yeah." "Shame," she said, and went back inside. I cleaned up the cigarette ash, locked the workshop, walked across the small yard to my house. My wife Janet was in the kitchen. Not Linda. Linda was gone. Janet was my second wife, married 3 years now, a smart woman who'd been an accountant before she retired. She looked up when I came in. "You okay?" "Called it in," I said. She nodded. We'd talked about this. The double ring, our signal, our pact. "How bad was it?" she asked. "Bad enough." She put down her coffee mug. Then we moved forward. I sat down at the kitchen table. Janet brought me a beer. We didn't speak for a long time. Finally, she said, "They have no idea who they're dealing with, do they?" "No," I said. "They really don't." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment over and over. The way Rebecca had smiled. The casual cruelty of it. Like I was nothing. Like the man who changed her diapers and taught her to ride a bike and paid for her college was just some old fool taking up space. At 2 a.m, I got up and went to my study. I kept files there, papers, documents, things I'd accumulated over the years because I'd learned young that information was currency. I pulled out the folder marked Rebecca and Kyle. People think I'm stupid because I work with my hands. They think mechanics are dumb. But you don't keep a small business running for 30 years by being stupid. You learn to pay attention. You learn to notice things. I'd noticed a lot about Kyle. I spread the papers across my desk. Tax returns I'd helped Rebecca file 2 years ago, back when she still asked for help. Property records from the county assessor's office, public information, all of it. Nothing illegal. And there it was. The thing I'd spotted 6 months ago but hadn't quite believed. Kyle had listed my workshop as an asset on a business loan application. My workshop, my property, land I'd bought 23 years ago when Rebecca was 5 years old. He'd valued it at $180,000. Used it as collateral for a loan he'd taken out through some private lending company I'd never heard of. Forged documents that made it look like I'd agreed to be a co-signer. I sat back in my chair. They wanted to take my life from me, so I decided to take theirs apart. The next morning, I called my old friend Jack. We'd served together in the Army, done 2 tours in Germany back when there was still a Cold War. Jack owned a heavy equipment rental yard now, and he knew everyone in the construction business. "Need a favor," I said. "Name it." "That company Kyle works for, Apex something." "Apex Construction Partners," Jack said. "Yeah, I know them. Bunch of cowboys. They bid jobs they can't finish, subcontract everything out, pocket the difference." "Tell me more," Jack laughed. "How much time you got?" I had all the time in the world. We met for coffee at the diner on Route 9. Jack was a big man, 6'4", with hands like catcher's mitts. He slid into the booth across from me and ordered eggs. "Kyle's a project manager there," Jack said. "Or that's what his business card says. Mostly he's a hustler. Smooth talker. Gets clients to sign contracts, then the company does shit work and disappears before the lawsuits start flying." "How legal is it?" "Technically, legal enough. They're just assholes. They don't break laws, they just bend the hell out of them." "What else?" Jack stirred his coffee. "Word is, Kyle's got a side thing going. Takes kickbacks from subcontractors. Nothing huge, but enough that if his bosses found out, he'd be done." "How would they find out?" Jack grinned. "Someone would have to tell them." "And how would someone know?" "Public records, mostly. Building permits list the subcontractors. You cross-reference who's getting hired repeatedly on Kyle's projects, check their payment records against the companies. You start to see patterns." I nodded slowly. "That sounds like a lot of work." "For most people," Jack said. "But you're not most people." I spent the next 3 days in my workshop, but I wasn't working on cars. I had my laptop open, running searches through county databases, cross-referencing permit applications, building a timeline. Janet brought me sandwiches, checked on me every few hours. "You finding what you need?" she asked. "More than I need," I said. On the 4th day, Rebecca called. Her voice was tight. "Dad, we need to talk." "About what?" "I'm coming over. Don't leave." She showed up an hour later. Alone this time. She walked into my workshop like she owned it, which I suppose she thought she would someday. "We're having a family dinner Friday night," she said. "At our place. You and Janet need to be there." "Why?" She looked at me like I'd asked a stupid question. "Because I'm telling you to be there." When did my daughter start talking to me like this? When did I become someone she could order around? "What's the occasion?" I asked. "Does there need to be one?" "Usually, yeah." She sighed, that exaggerated sound she'd perfected in high school. "Kyle's business partners are coming. We're trying to impress them. We need family there to look stable." "Stable? Don't make this difficult, Dad." I wiped my hands on my rag. "What time?" 7. Don't be late, and wear something nice." After she left, I called Jack again. "Friday night," I said. "I need you to do some digging. Find out who Kyle's business partners are and what they're meeting about." "On it," Jack said. When Friday came, Janet wore a blue dress. I wore the one sport coat I owned, the same one I'd worn to Linda's funeral. Rebecca and Kyle's townhouse was in the new development on the east side of town. HOA fees alone were more than my monthly mortgage. The houses all looked the same. Gray siding, black shutters, perfect lawns maintained by a landscaping service. Kyle answered the door. He looked me up and down and smirked. "Hey there, champ, come on in." Champ, like I was a child. The inside of their house looked like a furniture store display. Everything matched. Nothing looked lived in. There were decorative pillows on the couch that you weren't supposed to sit on, and art on the walls that wasn't really art, just mass-produced prints from Home Goods. Rebecca came out of the kitchen. She'd changed outfits 3 times based on the pile of clothes I could see through the bedroom door. "You're early," she said. "You said don't be late." "Early is rude too, Dad." I didn't respond to that. Janet squeezed my hand. The other guests arrived 15 minutes later, 2 men in expensive suits. Kyle introduced them as Drew and Brandon, his business partners at Apex. They shook my hand with the grip of men who'd read books about power handshakes but never done a day of manual labor. We sat down to dinner. Catered food, nothing Rebecca had cooked herself. The conversation was all business talk, numbers and percentages and deals pending. I sat quietly, eating salmon that cost $40 a pound. Brandon looked at me. "So Rebecca says you're a mechanic?" "I own a garage," I said. "Oh, you own it?" Like he was surprised I could own anything. 23 years now. That must be nice, working with your hands. Kyle laughed. Dad's old school. Doesn't believe in working smarter, just harder. Janet's hand found mine under the table. Drew leaned forward. Kyle's told us about your property. Nice piece of land, a prime location for development. I'm not selling, I said. Oh, no one's asking you to sell, Drew said quickly. Too quickly. Just saying, property values in that area are climbing. You're sitting on a gold mine. Rebecca jumped in. Dad doesn't really understand real estate investment. I understand it fine, I said. Do you, though? Kyle said. Because holding on to that property when you could leverage it into something better is just, well, it's poor financial planning. I set down my fork. I'm not leveraging anything. See, this is what I mean, Rebecca said to Kyle, like I wasn't sitting right there. He's stubborn, won't listen to advice. Sometimes the older generation needs guidance, Brandon said sympathetically. My father was the same way. Had to help him understand modern finance. I smiled. Didn't say anything, just smiled. Kyle saw it and frowned. The dinner lasted another hour. Janet and I left as soon as we could politely escape. In the car, she turned to me. They're going to try to take the property, aren't they? Yes. What are we going to do? I pulled out of their driveway and headed home. We're going to let them try, I said. Saturday morning, Jack called. You're not going to believe this, he said. Try me. Kyle's not just taking kickbacks. He's been cooking the books. Not enough to notice right away, but over time, he's skimmed about $40,000 off company projects. How'd you find that out? Remember Joey Romano? Used to work at that accounting firm downtown? He does forensic accounting now. Owed me a favor. I had him take a look at the public financial disclosures Apex has to file. Took him about 2 hours to spot the discrepancies. Could Kyle go to jail for that? If someone filed a formal complaint with proof? Yeah, probably. But you said it's all technically legal. The company structure is legal. What Kyle's doing inside that structure is fraud. He's stealing from his own company. I sat down in my workshop, phone pressed to my ear. There's more, Jack said. Guess whose credit line is back in Kyle's lifestyle? Rebecca's. Bingo. He maxed out 2 business credit cards in her name. She co-signed, probably didn't read what she was signing. He's in debt up to his eyeballs, and if the credit companies call those loans, they're both screwed. How screwed? Bankruptcy level screwed. I thanked Jack and hung up. I sat there for a long time, thinking. Then I got to work. Before we continue, hit the hype button, subscribe, and like the video to help the channel grow. Tell us which city you are from in the comments. We'd love to get to know our audience better. Monday morning, I drove to the county administration building. It was one of those government structures built in the 70s. Brown brick, narrow windows, a lobby that smelled like floor wax and disappointment. The property records office was on the 2nd floor. A tired woman behind the counter barely looked up when I approached. I need to file a formal property ownership claim, I said, and request a title search on my land. She slid me a form. Fill this out. Costs $35. I filled it out carefully, documenting every detail. My property, my workshop, purchased in 2002, title clear, no liens, no co-signers, no agreements to use it as collateral for anything. Then I filed a second form, a formal complaint about fraudulent documents filed with a private lending company called Pinnacle Capital Group. This one goes to the county attorney's office, the clerk said. They'll investigate. How long does that take? She shrugged. Couple weeks, maybe a month. That's fine. I walked out of that building feeling lighter than I had in weeks. That afternoon, I stopped by Mrs. Patterson's house. She was in her garden, wearing a sun hat that had seen better days, pulling weeds from her flower beds. Afternoon, I called. She looked up. Oh, hello. How are you? Good. Listen, I wanted to ask you something. You remember that night last week when Rebecca and Kyle stopped by? The night he yelled at you? Yes, hard to forget. I was watering my roses and heard the whole thing through the window. Did anyone else hear? Carol did. Carol Brennan from across the street. She was walking her dog. We talked about it after they left. Both of us were shocked. Would you be willing to write down what you heard? Just for my records. Nothing official. Mrs. Patterson straightened up, brushing dirt from her knees. Young man, I'd be happy to. That was shameful behavior. Your daughter should be embarrassed. Thank you. She went inside and came back out 5 minutes later with a handwritten account of what she'd witnessed. Time, date, exact words. She signed and dated it. Carol Brennan was walking her golden retriever when I knocked on her door. She was a schoolteacher, mid-50s, with the kind of no-nonsense attitude that came from handling 8th graders for 20 years. "I heard what happened," she said before I could even ask. "Your son-in-law has a mouth on him." "Would you mind writing that down?" "Already did." She handed me a sheet of paper. "Figured you might need it. Small towns. Sometimes they work against you. Sometimes they work for you. I had 3 witnesses now, all willing to testify that Kyle had been verbally abusive in public. Not enough for a legal case, but enough to start damaging his reputation. Reputation is currency in small towns. Once you lose it, you don't get it back." Wednesday evening, Janet and I were having dinner when my phone rang. Private number. "Hello? Is this Michael Hartman?" A woman's voice, professional. "Yes." "This is Jennifer Morrison from Pinnacle Capital Group. I'm calling regarding a loan application we received using your property as collateral." "I never signed anything with your company," I said. Silence on the other end. Then, "Could you hold, please?" I held. Janet watched me from across the table. 3 minutes later, a man's voice came on. "Mr. Hartman, this is Donald Pritchard. I'm the senior loan officer. We have a situation." "I'd say you do." "Could you come to our office tomorrow morning? I think we need to discuss this in person." "What time?" 9 o'clock. "I'll be there." Pinnacle Capital Group operated out of a small office in the business district downtown, the kind of place that catered to people who couldn't get traditional bank loans. Higher interest rates, fewer questions, riskier clients. Donald Pritchard was in his 50s, balding, wearing a tie that had a small stain near the bottom. He shook my hand and led me to his office. "Mr. Hartman, we have a problem. The documents we have on file for your property appear to be inconsistent with county records." "Inconsistent how?" "The signature on our form doesn't match the signature on the county property deed." "That's because I never signed your form." Pritchard pulled out a folder. "This application was submitted by Kyle Brennan. He claimed you were his business partner and had agreed to use your property as collateral for a $70,000 equipment loan." "I'm not his business partner. I'm his father-in-law, and I never agreed to anything." Pritchard rubbed his forehead. This is fraud." "Yes, it is. We'll need to cancel the loan immediately, and we'll need to file a police report." "I've already filed a complaint with the county attorney's office," I said. "But yes, I think a police report is a good idea." Pritchard looked sick. "Mr. Hartman, I'm very sorry about this. We do our due diligence, but sometimes people slip through." "Sometimes," I agreed. I left his office feeling satisfied. The machinery was in motion now. Kyle had committed a crime, and it was documented. Even if he tried to weasel out of it, the paperwork existed. The evidence existed. And that was just the beginning. Thursday morning, I got a call from Rebecca. She was crying. "Dad, the police want to talk to Kyle. They're saying something about fraud. They're saying you filed a complaint." "I did." "How could you do this? He's your family." "Rebecca, he forged my name on legal documents. That's a crime. You're going to destroy his career over a misunderstanding." "It's not a misunderstanding. He tried to steal my property." "He wasn't stealing. He was trying to help. He was going to use the loan to expand his business, and then he was going to pay you back." "Did he ask my permission?" Silence. "Rebecca, did he ask?" "He thought you'd say no. So he just took what he wanted." "You don't understand business, Dad. Sometimes you have to move fast. Opportunities don't wait." "No," I said. "They don't." I hung up. Friday afternoon, I was in my workshop when Janet came out, her face pale. "You need to see this." She handed me her phone. A text message from a number I didn't recognize. "Back off, old man, or you'll regret it." "Who sent this?" I asked. I don't know, but it came right after Rebecca called." I handed the phone back. "Save it. Screenshot it. Send it to your email." "Michael, I'm scared." "Don't be. This is just desperation." But I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a cold spot in my chest. Threats meant things were escalating. It meant Kyle was panicking. Good. That evening I called Jack. "How fast can you get me a surveillance camera set up?" "For your house?" "Yeah. Tomorrow morning. I'll bring it myself." Saturday, Jack arrived at 8 a.m. with a box full of equipment. We spent 3 hours installing cameras around my property, one covering the driveway, one covering the front door, one covering the workshop entrance. Military grade, Jack said. Motion activated. Records to the cloud. Someone so much as breathes wrong near your house, you'll have it on video. Thanks, brother. You expecting trouble? Just being prepared. Jack paused, holding a drill. You know I got your back, right? Whatever you need. I know. After he left, I tested the cameras. Perfect clarity, time-stamped. I could access the feeds from my phone. That night, at 11:30, the motion sensor on the driveway camera triggered. I pulled up the feed on my phone. Kyle's BMW sat at the end of my driveway. Headlights off, just sitting there. I watched for 10 minutes. The car didn't move. Then it backed up and drove away. I saved the video file. Sunday morning, I went to church. I'm not particularly religious, but Linda had been, and I'd gotten in the habit of going. It gave me time to think. Father Mackenzie had known our family for 20 years. After the service, he pulled me aside. Michael, I heard about the trouble with Rebecca. I'm sorry. Word travels fast. It's a small congregation. People talk. Are you doing okay? Better than expected. He studied my face. I know that look. I've seen it before. You're planning something. I'm protecting myself. There's a difference between protection and revenge. Is there? I asked. He didn't have an answer for that. Monday morning, I got a call from Detective Ramirez at the police department. Wait, I said. Did you say Ramirez? Yes, why? Never mind. What can I do for you? We need you to come in and give a formal statement about the property fraud case. I drove to the police station. It was a squat building with bulletproof glass at the reception desk. Detective Ramirez was a compact man with sharp eyes and a firm handshake. Mr. Hartman, walk me through what happened. I told him everything. He took notes. At the end, he leaned back in his chair. This is a pretty clear-cut case of forgery and fraud. We'll be bringing Kyle in for questioning. When? Probably tomorrow. We like to move fast on financial crimes before people can destroy evidence. Good. One more thing. He looked at me carefully. Have you had any contact with Kyle since filing the complaint? No. Has he tried to contact you? I hesitated. Then I pulled out my phone and showed him the threatening text Janet had received. From an unknown number? Yes. We'll look into it. In the meantime, if he contacts you again, don't engage. Just document it. I drove home feeling like I'd stepped into a river and couldn't see the bottom. Things were moving faster now. The current was pulling me along. I wasn't sure if I could stop, even if I wanted to. Monday morning, I woke up to a missed call from Detective Ramirez. I called him back. We tracked that sedan, he said. Rental car, paid for in cash. No name on the rental agreement that we can verify. So Kyle's being smart about it. Or someone he hired. Mr. Hartman, I need you to understand the seriousness of this situation. Kyle's bail hearing is scheduled for Wednesday morning. Until then, he's still out. We have patrol cars doing extra passes by your house, but we can't sit there 24/7. I understand. Do you have somewhere else you can stay? I'm not leaving. Then please, be vigilant. I spent the day working in my shop, but I kept my phone in my pocket and checked the security cameras every 15 minutes. Nothing. No suspicious cars, no movement. But the waiting was worse than action would have been. At least with action, you knew what you were dealing with. Tuesday morning, I drove to the hardware store. I needed supplies for a job I was working on, but also I needed to get out of the house. Sitting there watching cameras was making me paranoid. The hardware store was owned by a guy named Dennis, who'd been in my high school class. He waved when I walked in. Hey, Michael, heard about the trouble with Kyle. Yeah, tough situation. Sorry you're dealing with it. Thanks. I gathered what I needed. Replacement spark plugs, some PVC pipe for Janet's sink, wood screws, basic stuff. At the register, Dennis rang me up, then leaned in. Listen, I probably shouldn't say anything, but Kyle came in here yesterday. Oh yeah? He was asking about you, wanted to know if you came in regularly, what days, what times. My hands tightened on the shopping bag. What did you tell him? Told him I didn't keep track of my customers' schedules, but Michael, he was off, agitated, kept looking at the tool section, picking things up, putting them down, made me nervous. Thanks for letting me know. You need anything, you call me. I mean it. I drove home with a cold weight in my stomach. Kyle was doing reconnaissance, building a plan. The question was, what kind of plan? For Tuesday afternoon, Janet and I were sitting in the living room when her phone rang. She answered, listened, then her face went pale. Okay, yes. Thank you for telling me. She hung up, looked at me. That was my sister. She saw Kyle at the grocery store an hour ago. She tried to say hello, be friendly, and he went off on her. Told her to tell you that you've made a big mistake, that you're going to regret what you've done. Did anyone else hear? The store manager. He asked Kyle to leave. Good. More witnesses to his behavior. But I was worried now. Kyle was unraveling. People who unravel do unpredictable things. I called Jack. Can you come stay here tonight? Yeah, I'll bring my gear. Gear? Camping gear, sleeping bag. I'll crash in your living room. You don't have to. Brother, I'm coming. Don't argue. Jack showed up at 6 with a duffel bag and a cooler full of beer. We sat in my living room watching the security camera feeds on my laptop, not saying much, just being present. At 11 o'clock, headlights appeared at the end of my street. Kyle's BMW. It drove slowly past my house, then turned around at the cul-de-sac and drove past again. Then it parked across the street, 3 houses down. I called 911. There's a man violating a restraining order sitting outside my house. The operator took my address. Officers are en route. Stay inside. Don't confront him. We waited. The BMW sat there, engine running. 8 minutes later, a patrol car pulled up. Lights flashing, but no siren. 2 officers got out, approached the BMW. I watched through the camera feed as they spoke to Kyle. One officer gestured for him to step out of the car. Kyle got out. The conversation was animated. One officer called something in on his radio. Then they put Kyle in the back of the patrol car. The BMW was towed 15 minutes later. Detective Ramirez called me at 11:30. We've got him. He violated the restraining order. Judge is going to revoke bail tomorrow morning. He'll be in custody until trial. How long? Trial's in 6 weeks. He'll be in county jail until then. After we hung up, Jack cracked open a beer. Well, that's something. Yeah. But I didn't feel relief. I felt hollow, empty, like I'd been holding my breath for so long I'd forgotten how to breathe normally. Janet came downstairs in her bathrobe. Is it over? For now, I said. Wednesday morning, I went to Kyle's bail hearing. I sat in the back of the courtroom and watched. Kyle looked terrible. Unshaven, rumpled clothes, dark circles under his eyes. His lawyer argued that the restraining order violation was a misunderstanding, that Kyle was just driving through the neighborhood. The prosecutor, a sharp woman in her 30s named Amanda Price, wasn't having it. Your Honor, Mr. Brennan has repeatedly violated the conditions of his release. He's made threatening phone calls, sent harassing text messages, and last night was found sitting outside the victim's home at 11 p.m. This is a pattern of escalating behavior. We believe he's a danger to Mr. Hartman and request that bail be revoked. The judge, an older man with white hair and no patience, looked at Kyle. Mr. Brennan, do you have anything to say? Kyle stood. Your Honor, I'm not a danger to anyone. I'm just trying to protect my family. Michael Hartman has been harassing me, spreading lies about me, destroying my reputation. Mr. Brennan, do you understand what a restraining order is? Yes, but it means you stay away, completely away. You don't drive by his house. You don't call him. You don't have any contact whatsoever. Is that unclear to you? Kyle's jaw tightened. No, Your Honor. Bail is revoked. You'll remain in custody until your trial date. Kyle's lawyer objected. The judge overruled. 2 bailiffs led Kyle out of the courtroom. As he passed by where I was sitting, he looked directly at me. His eyes were full of hate. I left the courthouse and drove to a diner on the edge of town. Ordered coffee I didn't want, sat in a booth by myself. My phone rang. Rebecca. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Dad. Her voice was destroyed. They arrested Kyle again. He's in jail. The judge won't let him out. I know. I was there. You were there? You actually went to court to watch? I had to. Oh my God. You're enjoying this, aren't you? You're actually enjoying destroying our lives. Rebecca, I'm not enjoying anything. I'm making sure the legal system works the way it's supposed to. You're a monster. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just a father who got tired of being treated like garbage. I'll never forgive you for this. Never. When Kyle gets out, when this is all over, you'll never see me again. You'll never meet your grandchildren if I have any. You'll die alone and no one will care. If that's what it takes for you to learn that actions have consequences, then I accept that. She made a sound between a laugh and a sob. You're insane. Goodbye, Rebecca. I hung up, sat there staring at my coffee. A waitress came by. "You okay, hun?" "No," I said, "but I will be." The next few weeks passed in a strange kind of limbo. Kyle was in jail. Rebecca stopped calling. The house felt too quiet. I worked in my shop during the day, did normal mechanic things, oil changes, brake repairs, transmission work. Customers came and went. Some of them had heard about what happened. Most didn't mention it. Mrs. Patterson brought over a casserole. "Just wanted you to know people are on your side." "Thanks. Rebecca will come around eventually. She's hurt and confused right now, but she's your daughter. That counts for something." I wasn't so sure, but I appreciated the sentiment. Jack stopped by regularly. We'd sit in my workshop drinking beer, not talking much, just being there. "You doing okay?" he'd ask. "Define okay." Fair point. Janet held everything together. She kept the house running, handled the bills, made sure I ate. Some nights I'd wake up and find her sitting in the living room, staring at nothing. "Can't sleep?" I'd ask. "Thinking." "About?" "Whether we did the right thing? Did we?" "I don't know, but I know we couldn't do nothing." That was true. Doing nothing would have meant letting Kyle destroy me, letting Rebecca walk all over me, letting them take everything I'd built. But doing something had cost me my daughter. I still wasn't sure if that was a fair trade. 4 weeks after Kyle's arrest, I got a call from the district attorney's office. They wanted to discuss a plea deal. "Kyle's lawyer has approached us," Amanda Price said. "He's willing to plead guilty to the fraud charges in exchange for a reduced sentence. 2 years instead of 5. And what do I get out of that? Closure. You won't have to testify at trial. This ends much faster." "What's the catch?" "Kyle wants you to agree not to pursue civil damages. He wants protection from lawsuits." I laughed. "No." "Mr. Hartman. He tried to steal my property. He harassed my wife. He threatened me repeatedly. And now he wants protection from consequences? No. We go to trial." "Trial is expensive, time-consuming. It'll drag this out for months." "I don't care." She was quiet for a moment. "Okay, we'll proceed with trial then. Just wanted to give you the option." After we hung up, Janet looked at me. "You sure about that?" "No, but I'm not giving him an easy out. This is going to be hard. Testifying, reliving it all." "I know." "You ready for that?" I thought about it, really thought about it. "Yeah," I said. "I am." The trial was scheduled for a Tuesday in late September. I woke up that morning with my stomach in knots. Janet made me breakfast, but I couldn't eat. "You'll be fine," she said. "Just tell the truth." "What if Rebecca's there?" "Then she's there. You can't control that." We drove to the courthouse separately. Janet went with me. Jack met us in the parking lot. "Ready?" he asked. "No, but let's do it anyway." The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, an American flag in the corner. The judge's bench sat elevated at the front. The jury box was on the right, still empty. Kyle sat at the defense table with his lawyer. He'd lost weight. His suit hung loose on his frame. He didn't look at me when I walked in. Rebecca was in the gallery. She wore black. Appropriate, I suppose. She looked at me like I was a stranger. Maybe I was. The trial took 3 days. The prosecution called witness after witness. Detective Ramirez testified about the investigation. The forensic accountant walked through Kyle's financial records. The loan officer from Pinnacle Capital explained the forged documents. I testified on day 2. Amanda Price walked me through everything. The night Kyle yelled at me, the discovery of the fraudulent loan application, the threatening messages, the harassment. Kyle's lawyer cross-examined me. He was aggressive, trying to make it seem like I was vindictive, like this was all personal revenge over family drama. "Isn't it true that you never liked Kyle?" he asked. "I didn't know him well enough to like or dislike him." "But you resented him for marrying your daughter?" "No, I resented him for treating me like garbage in my own home." "Isn't it true that you went out of your way to destroy his reputation, that you contacted the newspaper, that you spread rumors?" I provided public information to a reporter who asked. I didn't spread anything that wasn't true. "But you wanted him to suffer, didn't you?" Amanda objected. The judge sustained it. But the question hung there. Did I want Kyle to suffer? Yes. Absolutely yes. I stepped down from the witness stand and returned to my seat. Rebecca was crying silently. I looked away. On day 3, Kyle took the stand in his own defense. Big mistake. He tried to explain away the fraud. Said it was a misunderstanding, said he'd planned to pay me back, said he'd never intended to actually use my property as collateral. Amanda Price destroyed him on cross. If you never intended to use his property, why forge his signature? I thought he'd agree if I asked. But you didn't ask, did you? No. You just took what you wanted. It's not like that. Then what is it like, Mr. Brennan? Explain to the jury how forging someone's signature on a loan document is anything other than fraud. He couldn't answer that. She walked him through the threatening voicemails, the harassing texts, the night he violated the restraining order. By the time she was done, Kyle looked like a man who'd lost everything, which I suppose he had. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they came back, the verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all counts. The judge scheduled sentencing for 2 weeks later. I should have felt triumph, victory, something. Instead, I just felt tired. Rebecca left the courthouse before I could say anything to her. Not that I knew what to say. What do you say to your daughter after you've helped send her husband to prison? Jack and Janet took me to dinner at the steakhouse on Main Street. We sat in a booth in the back and tried to celebrate, but it felt hollow. You did the right thing, Jack said. Did I? You didn't have a choice. He forced your hand. There's always a choice. Janet reached across the table and took my hand. Michael, stop second-guessing yourself. Kyle committed crimes. He faced consequences. That's how the system works. Rebecca will never speak to me again. Maybe not. But would you rather have let him destroy you? I didn't have an answer for that. Sentencing day came. Kyle got 4 years in state prison. With good behavior, he'd served 2.5. Rebecca didn't show up to the sentencing. I heard later that she'd filed for divorce 3 days after the verdict. Smart woman. Cutting ties before Kyle's financial mess dragged her down completely. I went home after sentencing and sat in my workshop. Looked around at the tools, the equipment, the 30 years of work I'd put into this place. It was still mine, still standing. But it felt different now, tainted, like the victory had cost more than the battle was worth. Janet found me there an hour later. You okay? I keep thinking about when Rebecca was little, before all this, when she'd come out here and hand me tools while I worked. She'd wear these little pink overalls and get grease all over herself, and Linda would pretend to be mad, but really she thought it was cute. I know. Where did that little girl go? She grew up. People change. Not like this, not into what she became. Janet sat down on the workbench. You want to know what I think? Always. I think Rebecca made her choices. She chose Kyle. She chose to disrespect you. She chose to side with him even when she knew he was wrong. Those were her choices, not yours. But if I'd been a better father, don't do that to yourself. You were a good father. You gave her everything. She made bad choices. That's on her. She's still my daughter. I know, and that will never change. But sometimes the only way to love someone is to let them face the consequences of their actions, even if it hurts, especially if it hurts. I nodded. She was right. I knew she was right. But knowing something doesn't make it easier. Life went back to something resembling normal. I worked in my shop. Janet gardened. We had dinner with Jack and his wife. Went to church some Sundays. Mrs. Patterson brought over cookies every few weeks. Carol walked her dog past my house and waved. Small-town life. Everyone knew what had happened. Some people thought I'd done the right thing. Others thought I was too harsh. Most just gossiped about it over coffee and moved on with their lives. Rebecca's townhouse went into foreclosure 3 months after Kyle went to prison. She moved back in with Kyle's parents. I heard she got a job as a receptionist at a dental office. I thought about reaching out, writing a letter, calling. But what would I say? Sorry I sent your husband to prison, but he committed fraud? It didn't exactly lend itself to reconciliation, so I waited, hoping that someday, maybe, she'd realize I'd done what I had to do, hoping that someday she'd come back. But deep down, I knew she probably wouldn't. 6 months after the trial, I was working late in my shop when I heard a car pull into the driveway. I checked the security camera. Rebecca's old Honda, the one she'd driven in college before Kyle convinced her to lease a Mercedes. I set down my wrench and waited. She walked into the workshop slowly. She looked different. Thinner, tired, older somehow. Hi, Dad. Hi, Rebecca. We stood there, the silence stretching between us like a canyon. Finally, she spoke. I've been going to therapy. That's good. My therapist says I need to take responsibility for my actions, that I can't blame you for what happened. Okay, I'm not ready to forgive you yet. I understand. But I'm trying to understand why you did what you did, why you couldn't just let it go. I thought about how to answer that, how to explain that sometimes you have to fight back, that sometimes letting it go means letting them destroy you. Rebecca, if I'd let it go, Kyle would have taken my property. He would have ruined me financially, and he would have moved on to the next person, the next victim. Someone had to stop him. It didn't have to be you? Yes, it did, because no one else would, and because I wasn't going to let him take everything I'd worked for. She nodded slowly. I married a con artist. Yes. I ignored all the signs because I wanted to believe he loved me. I know. I was so stupid. You weren't stupid. You were trusting. There's a difference. She laughed bitterly. Trusting, sure, let's call it that. We stood in silence for another minute. Then she said, I should go. You don't have to. Yes, I do. I'm not ready to stay. I needed to see you, to tell you I'm trying. That's enough. That's more than enough. She turned to leave, then stopped. Dad? Yeah? I'm sorry for how I treated you, for what I let Kyle do, for all of it. I know. Do you forgive me? I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, saw the little girl in pink overalls and the broken woman standing in front of me and everything in between. Yeah, I said. I forgive you. She nodded, tears running down her face. Then she left. I stood there in my workshop, surrounded by tools and memories and everything I'd fought to keep. And for the first time in months, I felt something other than anger. I felt hope. Hope is a dangerous thing. It makes you believe that things can get better, that people can change, that maybe, just maybe, the damage can be repaired. But hope doesn't account for human nature. It doesn't account for what happens when someone loses everything and decides they have nothing left to lose. Kyle got out of prison early. Good behavior. 18 months instead of 30. I didn't know he'd been released until Detective Ramirez called me on a Thursday morning. Mr. Hartman, I wanted to give you a heads up. Kyle was released yesterday. Already? He qualified for early release. I'm sorry. I know it's sooner than expected. Is he still under restrictions? He can't contact you directly, but the restraining order expired while he was inside. We can file for a new one if you want. Yee. Do that. After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table feeling the weight of it all come back. The fear, the vigilance, the constant watching over my shoulder. Janet came into the kitchen. What's wrong? Kyle's out. Her face went pale. When? Yesterday. Did they tell Rebecca? I don't know. I called Rebecca. She didn't answer. I left a message. Rebecca, call me. It's important. She called back 20 minutes later. What? Kyle's out of prison. Silence. Then, I know. He called me this morning. He what? He wanted to talk, to apologize. He said he's changed. That prison made him realize what he'd lost. Rebecca, please tell me you didn't agree to see him. I told him no. I told him we're divorced and I don't want anything to do with him. Good. Keep it that way. He sounded different, Dad. Calmer, quieter. He said he doesn't blame you for what happened, that you were right to turn him in. And you believed him? I don't know what I believe anymore. Rebecca, listen to me. People don't change in 18 months. Not fundamentally. Kyle's a con artist, a liar. Whatever he said to you, it's another con. Maybe. Or maybe prison actually did change him? Do you really believe that? Long pause. No, but I want to. After we hung up, I called Detective Ramirez back. Kyle contacted my daughter. Is that a violation of anything? Not unless there's a restraining order protecting her specifically. Is there? No. Then technically he's allowed to contact her. They were married. Even though they are divorced, there's no legal restriction. So he can harass her and there's nothing we can do? Unless she files for a restraining order herself, no. Great. Just great. 2 days later, Rebecca called me crying. He won't stop calling. He calls from different numbers, blocked numbers. He leaves messages saying he loves me and wants me back. Dad, I'm scared. File for a restraining order, today, right now. He hasn't threatened me. He's just persistent. Rebecca, file the order. Do it now. She did. The order was granted 48 hours later. For a week, everything was quiet. Kyle didn't call, didn't show up, didn't make contact. I let myself relax. Maybe he'd actually learned something. Maybe he'd moved on. Then Saturday night happened. I was in my workshop at 9 p.m., finishing up a brake job on a Chevy Silverado. Janet was in the house watching TV. It was raining, that steady autumn rain that makes everything smell like wet leaves and decay. I heard footsteps on the gravel outside. I turned. Kyle stood in the doorway. He was soaked, hair plastered to his skull, wearing jeans and a hoodie, both dripping water. He looked like a drowned rat. "Get out," I said. "I just want to talk. You're violating a restraining order. Get out of here before I call the cops." "You're not going to call anyone." He stepped inside. "We're going to have a conversation, man to man." I reached for my phone. He moved fast, faster than I expected, and knocked it out of my hand. It clattered across the concrete floor. I said, "We're going to talk." "Kyle, you need to leave. Now. You took everything from me." His voice was flat. "My job, my wife, my freedom, everything. You did that to yourself." "No, you did it. You could have let it go. You could have talked to me, worked it out. But you had to destroy me. You had to go to the police, the newspaper, everyone. You tried to steal my property. I was going to pay you back. With stolen money, with kickbacks from your company. You're a thief, Kyle, a con man, and you got caught." He laughed. It was a horrible sound. "Yeah, I got caught, and I spent 18 months in a cell thinking about what I'd do when I got out." My hand moved toward a wrench on the workbench. His eyes followed the movement. "Don't," he said. "What do you want?" "I want you to understand what you did to me, what you took from me. Do you have any idea what prison is like?" "I don't care." "You should, because that's where you're going." I laughed. "I didn't commit any crimes." "Not yet, but you will. Before tonight's over, you're going to do something that puts you in jail, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows it." "You're insane." "No, I'm clear. Maybe for the first time in my life." He moved toward me. I grabbed the wrench. "Stay back." "Or what? You'll hit me?" "Please do. Give me an excuse to defend myself. Give me an excuse to hurt you the way you hurt me." I backed up, hit the workbench. Nowhere else to go. Kyle smiled. "Where's your wife? In the house? Maybe I should go talk to her instead." "You touch her and I'll kill you." There it is. That's what I wanted to hear. That rage. That willingness to hurt someone. "You're not so different from me, old man. You just hide it better." I swung the wrench. He dodged, grabbed my wrist, twisted. I dropped the wrench. Pain shot up my arm. We grappled. He was younger, stronger, fueled by 18 months of prison rage. But I'd worked with my hands my whole life. I knew how to use leverage. I drove my elbow into his ribs. He grunted, loosened his grip. I shoved him backward. He stumbled, caught himself on a rolling tool chest. "Stop!" I yelled. "Just stop!" "Why? So you can send me back to prison? So you can take away what little I have left?" "You don't have anything left because you destroyed it all," he charged me. We crashed into a shelf of paint cans. They fell, exploding open, sending red paint everywhere. The floor was slick now. We both slipped, fell, grappled on the concrete. My back screamed in pain. He was on top of me, hands around my throat. "You took everything," he hissed, "so I'm taking it back." I couldn't breathe. My vision started to tunnel. Then suddenly Kyle wasn't there anymore. Jack had him by the back of his hoodie, hauling him up, throwing him against the wall. "You okay?" Jack asked me. I gasped for air. "Yeah." Jack had Kyle pinned. Kyle struggled, but Jack was bigger, stronger, not playing games. "Janet called me," Jack said. "Said she saw someone walking toward your workshop. Good thing I was only 5 minutes away." Police sirens in the distance. Kyle stopped struggling, went limp. "It doesn't matter," he said. "You'll never be free of me. Never." They arrested Kyle again, violating a restraining order, assault, breaking, and entering. This time there was no bail. This time he was going back to prison for a long time. I gave my statement to the police. Jack gave his. The evidence was overwhelming. At the hospital, they checked me out. Bruised ribs, strained wrist, cuts and scrapes, nothing serious. But I felt 100 years old. Rebecca showed up at the emergency room. She looked at me sitting on the examination table, bruised and bleeding, and started crying. "I'm so sorry. This is my fault. I should have known he'd do something like this." "It's not your fault." "Yes, it is. I married him. I brought him into our lives. I let him—" "Rebecca, stop. You didn't do this. He did. He made his choices." She sat down next to me on the examination table. "When does it end? When do we get to move on? I don't know. I'm so tired, Dad. I'm tired of being scared, tired of looking over my shoulder, tired of everything. I put my arm around her. She leaned against me like she used to when she was small. It ends now, I said. He's going back to prison for a long time, and when he gets out, we'll be ready. Will we? Yes, because we're stronger than he is, and we're not alone. She nodded against my shoulder. We sat there in the sterile hospital room, father and daughter, trying to find our way back to each other through the wreckage. Kyle's trial for assault and violating the restraining order was fast. He pleaded guilty in exchange for 6 years added to his original sentence. With credit for time served, he'd be in prison for another 7.5 years minimum. Rebecca and I attended the sentencing together. We sat in the back row, holding hands, as the judge read the sentence. Kyle didn't look at us, just stared straight ahead, his face blank. When it was over, Rebecca squeezed my hand. Is it really over? Yeah, it's really over. We walked out of the courthouse into bright sunshine. Fall was turning to winter, the air crisp and clean. What now? Rebecca asked. Now we rebuild. How? One day at a time. Rebuilding was harder than I expected. Rebecca moved into a small apartment across town. She kept her job at the dental office, started taking night classes at the community college. We had dinner once a week, nothing fancy, Chinese takeout or pizza or burgers. We didn't talk about Kyle, didn't talk about what had happened. We just tried to remember how to be father and daughter again. It was awkward at first. Long silences, forced conversations, the weight of everything between us making every interaction feel fragile. But slowly, gradually, it got easier. She told me about her classes. I told her about the cars I was working on. Small talk that led to bigger conversations. One night, about 3 months after Kyle's sentencing, she asked, "Do you think I'll ever trust anyone again?" Yes, but it'll take time. How do you know? Because your mom did. After her first marriage fell apart, she thought she'd never trust anyone, but she took a chance on me, and it worked out. Until she got sick. Yeah, until she got sick. But we had 20 good years. That's more than a lot of people get. Rebecca nodded. I miss her. Me too. Do you think she'd be disappointed in me? No. She'd be proud of you for surviving, for picking yourself up and moving forward. I don't feel like I'm moving forward. I feel like I'm just existing. That's how it starts. Existing leads to living. You'll get there. Spring came. The workshop stayed busy. Janet planted tomatoes and peppers in the garden. Mrs. Patterson brought over lemon bars. Life was normal again. Boring, safe. I didn't realize how much I'd missed boring until I had it back. One Saturday, Rebecca showed up at the workshop with a car problem. Her Honda was making a weird noise. Think you can look at it? She asked. That's literally my job. I checked her car. Needed new brake pads. I had the parts in stock. This'll take about an hour, I said. You want to wait? Can I help? I looked at her. You want to help? Yeah, like I used to when I was a kid. You remember that? Of course I do. You'd let me hand you tools, and I'd feel like I was doing something important. You were. We worked together in comfortable silence. I showed her how to remove the wheel, how to compress the caliper, how to install the new pads. She got grease on her hands and laughed. Mom would be pretending to be mad right now, but secretly loving it. Yeah. When we finished, she washed her hands in the utility sink. Thanks, Dad. For what? For not giving up on me, even when I deserved it. Rebecca, you're my daughter. I could never give up on you. She hugged me. I hugged her back, holding on tight, afraid to let go. I love you, she said. I love you too. That summer, Janet and I took a vacation. First one in years. We drove up to Maine, rented a cabin on a lake, spent a week doing nothing but reading and fishing and watching the sunset. You seem different, Janet said one evening as we sat on the dock. Different how? Lighter, like you're not carrying as much weight. Maybe I'm not. Rebecca? Yeah, having her back in my life. It helps. You two are healing. Slowly, but yeah, we are. Janet leaned against my shoulder. I'm proud of you, for fighting back, for protecting us, for surviving all of this. I couldn't have done it without you. I know, she smiled. That's why we're a team. We sat there as the sun set, painting the lake in shades of orange and pink. For the first time in years, I felt at peace. Fall came again. A year had passed since Kyle's attack. A year of healing, rebuilding, learning to trust again. Rebecca started dating someone new, a teacher from the high school where she was taking classes. She brought him by the workshop to introduce us. His name was Tom. He was quiet, polite, asked intelligent questions about cars. I liked him immediately. After they left, Janet asked, "What do you think?" "I think he's good for her." "You're not worried." "Of course I'm worried. I'm her father. I'll always worry, but she's happy. That's what matters." Rebecca and Tom got serious quickly. Within 6 months, they were talking about moving in together. A year later, they got engaged. She asked me to walk her down the aisle. I cried when she asked. Happy tears this time. The wedding was small, friends and family. Mrs. Patterson and Carol came. Jack was there with his wife. Father Mackenzie officiated. Rebecca looked beautiful, happy, whole. As I walked her down the aisle, she whispered, "Thank you." "For what?" "For saving me. From Kyle. From myself. From all of it." "You saved yourself. I just gave you room to do it." "You did more than that. You showed me what real strength looks like. Not control or manipulation or rage, just standing up for yourself, setting boundaries, refusing to be destroyed. You learned that on your own." "No, I learned it from you." I handed her off to Tom at the altar. He promised to love and cherish her, to respect her, to build a life with her based on honesty and trust. I believed him. 2 years after the wedding, Rebecca called me with news. "Dad, I'm pregnant." I sat down. "Rebecca, that's wonderful. We're having a girl. We're going to name her Linda, after Mom." I couldn't speak. Tears ran down my face. "Dad, you there?" "Yeah, I'm here. Thank you. Your mom would be so proud." "I know. That's why we're doing it." 9 months later, I held my granddaughter for the first time. She had Rebecca's eyes and Linda's smile. Life had come full circle. Kyle served his full sentence. No early release this time. When he got out, he moved to another state. Rebecca heard through mutual friends that he was working construction, living alone, trying to rebuild his life. She didn't care. She'd moved on, built something new, something better. We never spoke about him anymore. He was a ghost from another life, a mistake that had cost too much but taught valuable lessons. I kept working in my shop. Janet kept gardening. We watched our granddaughter grow. On quiet evenings, I'd sit in my workshop and think about everything that had happened, the anger, the revenge, the cost of it all. Had it been worth it? I didn't know. Maybe there was no right answer. But I knew this. I'd protected what was mine. I'd stood up when standing up seemed impossible. I'd refused to be destroyed. And in the end, I'd gotten my daughter back. That had to count for something. 5 years after Kyle's second sentencing, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Postmarked from somewhere in Arizona. I opened it carefully. "Mr. Hartman, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I understand that. But I wanted you to know that I'm sorry. For everything. For the fraud, the threats, the attack. For hurting your daughter and for trying to destroy your life. I was angry and desperate, and I made terrible choices. Prison gave me a lot of time to think about what I'd become. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that you were right. About everything. I hope you're doing well. I hope Rebecca is happy. Kyle." I read the letter twice. Then I filed it away in the box with all the other documents from that time. I didn't respond. Didn't tell Rebecca about it. Some things were better left in the past. That spring, Rebecca and Tom bought a house. A real house with a yard and a garage. They invited me over to see it before they moved in. "What do you think, Dad?" Rebecca asked as we walked through the empty rooms. "I think it's perfect. The garage is huge. Plenty of room for projects." "You planning on taking up mechanic work?" She laughed. "No, but Tom wants to learn. He asked if you'd teach him." "I'd love to." We stood in the garage, sunlight streaming through the open door, and I felt something shift. Not closure exactly. Just peace. "Dad?" Rebecca's voice was quiet. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't fought back? If you just let Kyle have the property?" "Sometimes. What do you think would have happened? I think he would have destroyed me, financially, emotionally, all of it. And then he would have moved on to the next victim. So you saved more than just yourself. Maybe, or maybe I just refused to be a victim. There's a difference. Is there? I thought about it. Yeah, refusing to be a victim is active. It's making a choice to stand up, fight back, protect yourself. Being saved implies someone else did the work. Well, I did the work. Me and Janet and Jack and everyone who helped. We saved ourselves. Rebecca nodded. I'm glad you did. The years passed. Linda grew from a baby to a toddler to a little girl who loved to help Grandpa in his workshop. She'd hand me tools, get grease on her pink coveralls, laugh when I made jokes. History repeating itself, but better this time, wiser. Rebecca and Tom had 2 more children, a boy named Jack, after my friend, a girl named Janet, after my wife. We had Sunday dinners, holiday gatherings, birthday parties, normal family things. Kyle existed only as a story we didn't tell, a cautionary tale filed away in boxes in my study. Sometimes I'd take out those boxes, read through the documents, remember, not with anger anymore, just acknowledgement. This happened, we survived, we moved on. Janet would find me sometimes, sitting in my study with the old papers spread out. You okay? She'd ask. Yeah, just remembering. Why? So I don't forget what it cost, what we almost lost. But we didn't lose it. No, we didn't. She'd squeeze my shoulder and leave me to my memories. I turned 72 the year Linda started school. Rebecca threw a party, everyone came, Jack and his wife, Mrs. Patterson, Carol, Tom's family, people from the neighborhood, customers from the shop. As I stood in my backyard watching everyone talk and laugh and eat too much cake, I felt grateful, not for what had happened, the pain, the betrayal, the destruction, but for what came after. The rebuilding, the healing, the second chances. Rebecca found me standing alone by the fence. What are you thinking about? She asked. How lucky I am. Lucky after everything? Yeah, because I have you and Janet and the grandkids and this life we built from the wreckage. She hugged me. I'm lucky too, to have a dad who fought for himself, who showed me what strength really looks like. You did the hard part. You came back, you forgave. That takes more strength than anything I did. Maybe we're both strong. Yeah, maybe we are. I kept working in my shop until I was 78. Then arthritis and a bum knee forced me to slow down. I sold the business to a young guy who'd been working for me for 5 years. Good kid, honest. Reminded me of myself at that age. I kept the property, though, the workshop, the land Kyle had tried to steal. It was mine. And it would stay mine until the day I died. Rebecca understood. She didn't push me to sell or develop or do anything with it. It's yours, Dad, she said. Keep it as long as you want. I'm leaving it to Linda, I told her, in my will. She's the only one who appreciates it. Rebecca smiled. Mom would love that. Both of them would. On quiet evenings, I'd sit in my workshop even though I wasn't working anymore. Just sit there with the smell of oil and metal and memories. Janet would bring me coffee and sit with me. Any regrets? She asked one night. About Kyle? About everything. I thought about it. Really thought about it. No, I'd do it all again. Every confrontation, every court date, every fight. Because it led us here. To this life, to this family. Even if it meant losing Rebecca for a while? Even then. Because I didn't really lose her. She just had to find her own way back. Janet nodded. You're a good man, Michael Hartman. I'm a man who refused to give up. That's all. That's everything. We sat there in the darkness, holding hands, surrounded by tools and memories and the weight of choices made and consequences faced, and I felt at peace.